Let's wait for a minute for everyone to join. So, welcome everyone to our webinar today. We would be reviewing NN Bank case and how they got dividends from the observability. Today we will talk about their journey as well as how to assess your own maturity level for observability practice in your company. So we will start with the introduction of our panel expert. You will hear from me, Dmitry Maximov. Throughout this webinar, I will be hosting the session, and I'm a senior product manager here at StackState. And after my introduction, you'll hear first from Sander Faithhart, a Scrum Master for the Platform Services team at NN Bank. And Sander will set the stage on the need NN Bank had for observability. And then we will hear from Ludovic Bockarts, who is a CTO and co-founder at StackState, who will review the observability maturity model. And after Ludovic finishes, Sander will be back to discuss the bank journey and his assessment of where they are in their observability maturity now. So please feel free to ask questions throughout the session. We would collect them, and after the presentation, we would have 15 minutes for Q&A, and our expert would be happy to answer the questions you have. And there will also be 2 polls during the session. So we would ask you to answer that, and would see the results, how you assess the maturity level of observability practice at your company. And we basically, ready to start our great session today. So over to you, Sander, please.
Great. Thank you, Dimitri. It's a pleasure to be here today and to tell everyone here about our journey and how we feel and think about monitoring maturity. I will first do a short introduction of the company I work for. So if we move to the next slide, there's a beautiful picture, I hope. I work at NN Bank. I've been working there for quite a few years now, and I've always been busy with monitoring. And the key problem is always relating it to your business performance, and that's why we start on this journey. If you move along, Ludovic. About the company, we're a financial services company in the Netherlands, and quite a big one. If you look at these numbers, it's over 5 million customers, over 10,000 employees. I held the role of Scrum Master for NN Bank. I just switched to product owner for monitoring and remediation and group IT, but that's a bit more technical. We'll talk about the bank journey today. Let's move along. What was the situation that caused us to actually start with this journey? I think that's a very good one, and the background says it all. We basically, in a big company like this, in financial services with a lot of customers and therefore a lot of departments and a lot of employees, we had a lot of pieces of the puzzle when an IT situation happened, an incident happened. Everybody could see some impact. Usually the business sees the impacts very well. They get complaints. And the IT guys, they see the causes very well. They see something is going wrong somewhere. But tying it all together, that has been our challenge when we started out. There's always, the challenge, like, okay, piece of the puzzle everywhere, but to solve the issue, we actually need to get the total picture. And I will talk a bit more later about that. But first, the starting numbers. Yeah, you had them correctly here, Ludovic. When we started, these were our availability numbers because we had all the puzzle pieces but couldn't tie them together. This is actual production numbers way back. And it was fun for me to just share them with you so you have some clue of why we started, because you can see in red these numbers, they don't make your customers very happy, but you can see we did have some insight into them. I guess that's all I'm going to say for now, because I want Lodewijk to introduce the nice maturity model first, and I'll get back to you in a minute when he's explained it all.
And Sander, I have one question.
Let's also answer.
Sander, I have one question for you also.
Yeah.
Recently, I used your quote with somebody, and I said, we see impact, we see causes. And the question that person then asked me was like, what's the cause?
What's a cause? Or you mean?
Yeah, well, how can you see causes?
That's a good question. Well, typically we do have the actual event somewhere hidden in a log that tells you exactly what went wrong with the application. That's typically the cause, but you need inside knowledge to know that's the cause. So we see the causes, we see the impact somewhere far away, but tying it all together and seeing that this cause has led to this impact, that's the key we're missing.
Great. Yeah, that's pretty much the answer I gave. So I'm happy I did give the right answer. Thank you.
Yeah. And thanks for the question. It's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah. First, let's introduce the first poll. Please answer that question. What is your organization's top business-related goal or IT-related goal for observability? You can select one of the following options: improving efficiency in incident management processes, increasing availability, reducing mean time to resolution, or improving and maintaining performance metrics, or it would be providing deeper or new insights into applications, or it might be getting a unified view of our entire IT landscape or IT system. So please choose your answer, and I would give you some time to do it, about like, let's count for 20 seconds. Oh, great. So now you can see the results of the poll that you voted for. And we see that the most common answer to that is basically getting a unified view of our entire IT system is the most popular. And the second popular is improving efficiency in incident management processes. Great. So now over to you, Lodewijk. So you can overview the observability maturity model.
Sure. Let's get into the observability maturity model. So maybe a bit of background on the maturity model itself. We published the first version of this maturity model back in 2015. It was called the monitoring maturity model back then, because back then the word observability wasn't yet a thing. And it has held quite well over the years. It has evolved a little bit. Some of the stages have been renamed and so forth. But it's been very interesting to see how well it has panned out. And I'm very curious also to see where it will go in the future. And what the model does, it tells you in terms of your journey of understanding your system, making sure it is always performant, reliant, available, and so forth, healthy. What kind of steps you typically will take, and how we will get to the holy grail of here, proactive observability with AIOps. And I'll take you through the levels, and we'll then have a deeper understanding of what we mean with these levels. So the first level is monitoring, and that basically is answering the question, is the system working? And that is always the start of any monitoring observability journey. So I'm not saying that, like, even if a modern company would start with a new environment, they would start here at level 1. We simply want to know, I have a service, is it still working? And so what we do there is we look at component level monitoring. So we have a box, and we want to know whether that box is doing all right or not. So we're looking at some basic metrics like response time. Is it responding? And then, if it is responding and it is responding fast enough, then my box is okay. And so you end up with systems like this, where, here on the left is Nagios, which is, I think, one of the most well-used systems in the world. I believe it is still today, in fact. And where you end up with a lot of traffic light conditions. So you see a lot of orange, you see a lot of red, you see a lot of green. Or here on the right, you see Pingdom that will do this response time checking on a bunch of APIs. Is my API still working? And that gives you also these traffic light conditions. So you see some green here, you see some red here, and then some basic metrics. And that's where pretty much every monitoring journey starts today. And that's a good start, and you need to start there. But you soon get into difficulties that on this level are hard to solve / impossible to solve. And there is a reason that then you need to go to the next level, which is observability. And that reason is, you know on this level whether your box is working or not, but you have no idea why it's not working when it's not working. And in fact, I was at some point an operations. I actually took over the operations of one of our DevOps engineers for a day. This is back in the day, and I actually had to make a screenshot of Nagios and check whether the same services are still up and down, because some of these are orange and red all the time. And if one of them then goes from green to red, then the question is, what do you do then? And really, monitoring doesn't really help you on this level to go deeper. But of course, nowadays we all know the word observability, and that really is about why is the system not working. So I've been advised sometimes to explain to people what observability is, and I actually don't like that very much, because there's a bunch of definitions roaming around that I don't think are really that descriptive. To me, really, it's about understanding what a system is doing based on metrics, logs, and traces. That's really what it comes down to. And then it's more about, like, what can it do for you? Well, it can answer the question, why is the system not working? And this is really necessary, especially in dynamic cloud environments, where the environment itself is also changing a lot, and you need to get access to the logs and the metrics and the traces in a single place very quickly. Back in the day, when Nagios would say this component is not working, you would log into a machine and you would look at the logs, and then you might figure out, based on some stack trace, that some system, like, this is the reason why it's now not working. But when you have a really strongly distributed system, now that needs to be centralized, and you need to be able to quickly go through the data in order to figure out where the issue is coming from. And OpenTelemetry is a key part of this. So before OpenTelemetry, it's not like we didn't know how to do metrics, logs, and traces. I mean, that has been around for quite some time. But with OpenTelemetry, we can now standardize the protocol that your application is transmitting to an observability vendor or observability solution that then allows that solution to get the metrics, logs, and traces without actually having to go in with some complicated agent that that instruments the code. And so OpenTelemetry is a big part of this this part of the journey.
That's it's fun you mentioned that, Lodo. Like, that's a challenge that we just realized, and we're looking into using OpenTelemetry. We haven't implemented it just yet, but doing this journey, it's something, we need this, and we're actively looking into it.
Yeah, and we're actually using it for your serverless landscape already. And that's, I think that it really helped us out as well, because as a vendor, our only option to provide metrics, logs, and traces for all different applications was to write a Java agent for Java that understands, all the different Java libraries, and do that for .NET, and do that for, all the different languages. But with OpenTelemetry, all of that becomes standardized, and the difficulty is now not anymore so much in collecting the data, but is more in like, what are you going to do with that data, which makes it possible for us to go to a higher level.
I also liked your statement on the observability, that it's a discussion we're having internally as well. What's observability? And the key thing I always do is come to a shared definition first before moving forward, because if people have different things in their head, you're not going to end the discussion.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. I'm very curious what your definition is, but we'll talk about that.
Not this currently, but I think we will shift to this definition.
Yeah. So here's how observability looks like. At least this is how it looks like in Grafana. That's a well-known tool that allows you to look through your logs, metrics, and traces. And really the key point here is also that, even though that looks very good, and that's much faster than what it used to be, because now in one place you have all these metrics, logs, and traces, it's still a lot of manual work to then go through the data and to figure out why the system is not working. And that's why we need to start, we need to really go up one level in order to solve that problem, because what fundamentally is lacking at this level, and the way I explain this sometimes is, when you're looking at monitoring, so level 1, you're looking at black boxes, and those black boxes you can now color with some traffic light color, right? Green, orange, or red. And so you have a bunch of these boxes, and with observability, you can now look inside these boxes. How are they doing? And also on the traces, you can see some connections between the boxes. But how fundamentally the boxes are connected is something that is still missing. And that's really what level 3 is about. So level 3 is about answering the question, what are the causes and effects of the system not working? And really here we're automating that question also. So it's not that, maybe you can figure out on level 2, what are some causes and effects of a system not working, but we're trying to automate this question. And in order to be able to do that, you need to see how the effects of a change propagates across your stack. And the way we do that is with 2 different types of information. So on level 3, we have metrics, logs, and traces. And on level 3, we have topology and change. So the topology allows you to understand, the boxes, but also like how these boxes are related to each other. And that's very fundamental. It's fundamental to know whether this microservice depends on that microservice, or the other way around, or not at all. I mean, that is very crucial type of information. And without that information, it's impossible for you to say something about cause and effect. And then the other thing is like the changes. So this microservice may depend on this microservice, but when a change happens, all of a sudden the dependency may be reversed, or the connection may be gone, or a third microservice might have entered, or these microservices might have updated to a new version. So the life cycle of these boxes and the configuration of these boxes is actually quite an important bit in trying to understand what are the causes and effects. And also often, of course, when something goes wrong, a change is very often the underlying cause. So having those changes is crucial. And how does that then look like? Well, in stack state, it looks like this. So we're looking at the topology. We can time travel. And then here,
can you advance a bit, because it's like really exciting stuff, but to allow then also for Sander's case to be well explained. Yeah, just a bit.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So level 3, why level 3? Well, more than half of all issues are caused by changes. Change implies topology. I'll, because I don't have that much time anymore, I'll skip that one. Speed of change and IT complexity are exponentially increasing. Well, this is something that we all recognize, right? So CI/CD pipelines, automation, etc., is increasing the speed of change. So change is becoming more important. And topology is the context for telemetry. So if I have metrics, logs, and traces, they relate to the boxes. So, and the boxes are known by the topology. And that then creates causal reasoning, like makes causal reasoning possible, which then gives you automated root cause analysis, alert correlation, business impact analysis, and proactive insights. So this is really where Sander said, like, we see impact, we see causes, but we don't see the relation between them. Well, with this, now we do. And then there, from here, there's one level up. And so now the way I sometimes have described it is like, you have all the data, just like at some point, maybe you have a car that has GPS and LiDAR and cameras, and now there's enough data to create an autopilot. And then really an autopilot becomes possible. And that's the same analogy goes here. So on level 4, we want to get to the proactive observability. So we want to start preventing incidents from even occurring. And on level 4, we can use artificial intelligence, machine learning to derive new insights. Think about anomalies, think about predictions. And now the reason why this sits behind level 3 and not, because there's many products that will offer to you, hey, we can do anomaly detection on this stream, is because we can now put those anomalies, we can put those predictions into context. And that context is critical, because if I tell you there's an anomaly on your database, then that doesn't tell you anything. But if I say there's an anomaly on your database, and just before there were some major changes on my microservices, and we're now also seeing a disturbance on this business service that is related to all that, now it becomes much more actionable. And that's the reason why we see the causal reasoning as a fundamental step before we can actually go to this level.
Yeah, exciting. Thank you for insightful presentation of the observability maturity model. And thanks Ludovic. And now let's go to the second proof. So after you've been briefly educated by Ludovic with observability maturity model, let's see where your organization's level onto this model. So regarding the various observability levels, at what level would you benchmark your organization? Select one of the following. So is it level 1, monitoring, or level 2, observability, or maybe it's even level 3, causal observability, or level 4, proactive observability with AI ops? Please choose your answer to the poll. And also, while you're choosing, it would be also nice to mention that we did a research with a TechStrong research this summer on exactly this topic. And also it would be pretty interesting to compare the results with this audience with the results that we've got from the research. So this slide shows what we've got from the research. So now Ludovic, please show what we've got on level 1 for the research. Yeah, it's 35%. And level 2, 34. Level 3, 19. Okay, it's less people there. And level 4, oh, it's just 11%. Okay, that's interesting. And now let's compare this with what we've got with the audience. So we see the most people are benchmarking their organization at level 1, monitoring level. That is fine. And the second most popular is a level 2, observability, and just about 8% benchmark at level 3 or level 4. So yeah, basically it would be then even more interesting to see from Sander how they utilize the observability maturity model, and to hear about their journey, and basically also know how Sander benchmark NN Bank before and after this journey. So back to you, Sander.
Great. Yeah, I was just thinking, where do I benchmark myself? But I think the answer currently is 2.5, which kind of sounds weak, but I do not dare say we're everywhere at level 3 just yet, but we're making good progress. Yeah, when we started, the next slide, we were between level 1 and 2. We were quite a long way into getting full observability everywhere. But yeah, we're in a big company, so I also have IT departments outside NN Bank I rely on that I need metrics of. And our key discussions were typically not that we didn't know something was going wrong, but they were really about who's supposed to fix it and where's the root cause. And that led to these issues that our availability was low. The mean time to repair was long, and the customer experience overall was quite low. And this was at a level 1, between level 1 and 2 monitoring, where at bank we were at level 2, but not every part of the company was at the same level. Some of them were still at level 1, didn't really consider architecturing, neighboring architecture. So then we saw an incident and we went to them and say, yeah, we think it's you. And then they had to look at their data and they could say, well, it's not us, probably because they were not monitoring correctly, or we weren't monitoring them correctly. So we had a lot of issues. So we set on this journey. We saw, sorry, Lodewijk. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I wanted to just remark that we recently started working on an observability maturity assessment, and in that assessment we score on all 4 levels at the same time. So an organization, of course, is never just at one level. I mean, we can score. We take the scores of how far are you on level 1, how far on level 2, how far on 3 and 4.
That's a very good remark. We had an internal assessment in a similar fashion, that we saw different business units on different levels as well. But as a company, you want to get somewhere, and specifically when you get to the higher levels, you already mentioned that in level 4, don't skip level 3. But for level 4, you also need everybody within the company to be on board with your strategy and move forward. Otherwise, you'll be missing important parts of your data, and your AI ops will not be as good as it can be. Thanks for breaking in there. Let's look at our journey so far. Let's go to the next one. I kind of remade this slide specifically for this presentation to match the levels a bit. A few years back, we had a similar webinar, and it said we wanted to do AI ops, and then I realized that that's a very long journey. So I wanted to make it a bit more concrete for you, the current steps and the current levels we're at. At the very first level, that's gathering data. We've already been doing this before we started our journey, but I think it was the key start of the journey way back even before I worked at the company. Our monitoring journey really started with gathering data. The next step, that's the level 2 step, I would describe it, and that's creating black boxes, and I will explain a bit more what I mean by that. It's a bit different from what Lodewijk just explained, but it's fine. And that's a step that we spend a lot of time on. We're still spending time on. And the third step, that's that we're actually going to show the dependencies, and that's going to get us to that third level, to the causal observability. But to do that, we do need the black boxes. Okay, moving on. So what's the data lake look like? What's the gathering data strategy currently? And then we have Splunk as a centralized data lake, but DevOps teams are free, sort of, I must say, to use their own monitoring, and I encourage them to do so. If you have a tool that works better for you, that does give you all the details, that helps you do your monitoring for your team, I encourage you to use it. And then everyone can basically see the costs. That's the idea here. And we do try to keep it centralized in Splunk, but not all the detailed data has to go to Splunk. And that has to do with black boxes. But I'm going to show you first, before I go some dashboarding. So let's have a look. What does it look like when you're gathering data? Well, this is a typical dashboard for a DevOps team when we started our journey. So what you see here is they're quite in control of their own applications and their own stacks. And this particular one had some visitor data in here as well. But this is still their own scope. This is what they control. This is all their stuff. So they know if something goes wrong here. But what we also saw a lot here is alert storms, that if something goes wrong, everything is red at once. And then they still have to figure out the root cause. Another dashboard at the same time is more a high management level dashboard, where we have just availability numbers. And another team, that's the next one, might even use a different tool, far more details on the operational level that tells them, okay, this is my CPU utilization. And again, when something happens, it can be the CPU. They can see that the CPU spikes, but they don't have information of that other team we saw earlier that's now having the alert storm. And that's where a lot of our past issues basically came from. Everybody has their piece of the puzzle. We can all see it. And then we start blaming each other because it's red everywhere. And that's not helpful in incidents. So we had a look at adopting the monitoring maturity model, and that's when we also came into the discussion of, I think we should service black boxes within the company. This is an example of that. We know the dependencies between teams. So what we did, we made an agreement when we internalized the monitoring maturity model that if you're going to do this model, that you should also think about the teams that are using your software. And you should also think about providing your software to another team. And if you have those relations, then you should also provide some monitoring to neighboring teams. And don't do it on the event level. They are not interested in your core events, but do it one level higher. Provide your entire application status as a black box to another team that they can incorporate in their monitoring. And now we start to see that we're shifting towards an IT chain, and we at least know from other teams, oh, they're saying they are okay or not. And then you get more of a shared responsibility, and you can incorporate their black box in your monitoring as well, their health state. And this is what it typically looks like. And when you first show this to someone who's used to level 1 monitoring, where you have overkill dashboards with a lot of data, they get scared, like, this doesn't tell me anything. And that's the exact point. It doesn't tell you the details, because if you share the details to someone who's not in your team but further in the organization, they're not interested. They don't want to know. They just want to know they are aware of the problem and we are going to fix it. Of course, if you have an error, these dashboards, you can drill down to the errors. We designed it like that. Still, this is not enough, because you will be providing a black box, but you don't know how things are related necessarily. You do have the black boxes, but that's it. So let's take a step further. Lodewijk, if you move along. We were at this point, basically, when we started out with stack state. We were having a lot of black boxes everywhere. We thought, well, we're quite in control, and we were still seeing that the mean time to repair was too long and the availability too low, because people can still blame each other. And even sometimes they are not aware of the black boxes they need. That's also a common thing when you start doing this. You might be using stuff from people you're not even aware of. So it becomes key that you know your dependencies. And yeah, this Gartner quote I really like. It says, capturing where events occurred and their up and downstream dependencies using graph and bottleneck analysis can provide great insight on where to focus remediation efforts. And when I read this, I was like, we need this. This is exactly what's missing in our current model. We don't know the dependencies on each other. So we try to build that into our monitoring as the next step towards the next level of maturity. Let's have a look at how we did it at first. If you move along, the first thing, well, we had the embedded tooling. We had the centralized data lake. If I go back to that, the key strategy is put your black boxes in the centralized data lake, but not necessarily all the events. That's also keeping the central data lake healthy. Entirely separate discussion, by the way. So the first thing we did was, okay, well, we have all the black boxes. Can't we create the dependencies in Splunk? Or the secondary question, can't we read them from the ServiceNow or the centralized database, the administration, basically? Because you have to, of course, when you do changes, you have to register them as well, and you have to register what you changed in your configuration items. And we quickly found that that was very manual, a lot of manual work. It was quite static, the picture as well, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, by the way, if you're still used to on-prem servers. But if you're moving to the cloud, this becomes extremely time-consuming. You have to change it every deployment. And especially in a big company, you don't even know all the deployments over time. Lodewijk already mentioned it, the amount of changes and IT complexity is growing exponentially, and I can vouch for that when I try to build this. And it's limited to your own knowledge still, what you know about the business processes and service and the IT chain. So yeah, nice try, but this was not sufficient. So we had to do something else. We had to look at tooling, basically. Like, okay, we can't solve this, is what we currently have. Let's have a look around. And we found StackState quite a suitable solution because it can auto-discover the topology. And we also hooked it up with our AWS environment, and it fully auto-discovers the AWS environment. Now, when we do changes, we don't need to change the queries because it's updated in the graph database automatically. It can detect the changes real time as well, and it can provide a very nice full stack overview. And we already had all the black boxes in place, so it was quite easy for us to tie the correct metrics to each part of the IT chain as well. So yeah, that was definitely better. I think there's another slide here. Yeah, that's a bit more on how it works technically. I thought you might be interested. So we have the centralized data lake in Splunk. The first thing we did when we implemented StackState was have a look at the black boxes there, and most of them were already reports, but those that were not, we converted them into reports and key performance indicators, and we'll pull those reports from StackState, and we connected our cloud environments directly to StackState. In addition, I would like to mention that we're now also looking at bypassing Splunk in some cases. It's definitely possible with StackState. And not every team uses the centralized data lake. Some teams don't do all the events there, or for them it's overkill. You can think what you want of that from a centralized monitoring strategy perspective. But it's nice that you can say to a DevOps team, okay, we're not gonna force you to use a tool you're not using yet. You can just put the data directly into StackState. So we're investigating those options as well. But yeah, we pull the data constantly from StackState, and it got us a nice picture of our IT chain. And I think I forgot it on the next slide to add actually that picture, but we can check.
I wanted to interject here also because I've seen and I've spoken to several companies, so I think it's kind of becoming a trend to have a message bus. Typically, I've seen Kafka a couple of times. Be that message bus where all the monitoring, observability, topological data streams through this central observability bus, and a system like Splunk then is a sink for that source. And typically now we're seeing also, and not only with you guys, but also with some other customers of ours, that they want StackState to plug into that bus as well because of latencies, basically. I mean, if you pull data from Splunk, then Splunk first needs to process it, and then StackState can process it.
Yeah.
And that creates latencies, and those latencies whereas before they weren't so important. Now with the increase of speed, they're becoming more important.
Yeah, that's a very good remark. We had that issue with Splunk as well, also due to our own first version of the reports, but that's also part of the journey. They were quite badly performing, so we overloaded the Splunk platform. There were more issues going on, by the way. It was not just our reports. Not to bring down the Splunk platform in any way, we were using it wrong. But that's a very good remark, and that's also your latency also. Why I say I'd rather have the data directly, and I like that it's possible in StackState to connect it directly to other sources. For me, that was one of the strong selling points. I checked, I forgot to add my picture of StackState, the IT chain. I should have added it, but I will briefly describe it. We have a nice overview of the entire IT chain there. And one thing that's very important, that once you do this, you will realize that the picture you had in your head all along of how your IT chain works is wrong. And also your configuration is wrong. Once we had all the data into StackState, we saw relations we didn't realize were there. And we realized some components we were not monitoring at all because we read that they were there. And then, okay, where's the metric? We should have a black box for this. There is no black box. What? Okay, yeah, we weren't aware this component existed. So it made us aware of gaps as well. And that's also why it's very important not to skip this phase, because if you do, and you try to do AI ops on what you have, you will be doing AI ops on a faulty data lake, basically. And then the AI will learn patterns that are wrong. So I thought it was key to mention. Also because Lodewijk explicitly said, do not skip the step. I can confirm, do not skip the step. Okay, so the benefits that we have when we use this tool, everyone has the same shared picture under the hood. Still, everyone can have their own view of the data, but under the hood, it's all connected. And it's very easy to get a common understanding across teams and tools when you use this. It has real-time visibilities into your dependencies, and when they change, the picture changes as well. And when we can relate our issues to our business performance. Of course, you need to have the business metrics in place as well to do so. But we do have some of them, and we can actually see in the availability numbers, which is our business performance, where the root cause is. And the really nice thing, it enables you to directly call the right people, and you don't have to discuss about it. If everyone uses this, everyone has the same picture, they can see it started here at this time, at this moment. We haven't fully integrated it with change data yet, but that's the next step for me, because then I can also say it was this change and this commit that did it. So that's, we're looking into it right now. Okay, that's cool. About the benefits. A quick look at the availability. Remember these slides from earlier, right? This was a typical week for us when we started. And if we go to the next one, this is a typical week now. The dashboard has changed in the meantime, it doesn't matter. Still not in the green, but we can see it's in the orange, and we do see greens every now and then. And we actually get to 100% every now and then. Every few weeks, we have 100% availability, which in the past, we would not be able to have. Yeah, the customer experience also went up. I don't know the recent number. That's why it's not on the slide, but a few years back, I think it was a year and a half back, it was 11.6 from the low score we saw earlier. And the meantime, the repair has also gone down, I think to 2 hours maximum nowadays. So definitely a lot better. Some final takeaways, and then we'll shift back to the Q&A. The next slide, Lodewijk. Yeah. Our lessons learned. We tried to adopt AI, but that's a long journey. So definitely don't be afraid of the journey. Start today, but be aware it takes some time. If you don't start at all, yeah, you're not helping anyone. Along this journey, automation is key. If you don't, the manual work will overwhelm you the further you get. So think about automating things. And this requires time and effort. So your management needs to understand, and they need to support you as well. If they don't, then it will become difficult. You don't want to explain every week why monitoring is important, basically.
Yeah, it's quite nice actually that you guys adopted the model, and that I think that helps, yeah. Because then that's on a management level, it's understandable.
It also helps when you discuss with engineers. The first thing I do when because they ask sometimes, can you help us out with monitoring, and assess where they are. I grab the model and I ask questions directed from the model, like, where are you? Are you doing events, traces? And it helps me grasp a very quick picture of where they are and what their next steps are. And it makes it concrete for them as well. Oh, we have to do this and this and this now. And they can do that in an agile manner. And if you say you have to do level 4 now, but you don't assess where they are, then a lot of information is coming their way, and they will get quickly lost.
Yeah.
Thank you,
very cool.
Sander. It's really interesting journey you have undertaken with NN Bank, and it was also exciting to see how the dashboard actually goes from red to at least orange and tend to go to green. So yeah, something definitely to take into account, and yeah,
I think it's good to
for
mention
observability.
for the dashboard, we check availability automated every 5 minutes. So we have a very strict system that catches a lot, and that's why the numbers are quite poor. If you're still doing self-reporting, your numbers will probably be better. The teams in our company that still do that, they have higher availability.
Yeah, it's better to have more strict rules and earnest numbers here.
But imagine that management discussion when you want to do automated availability and you say the numbers are going to be lower. It's not a fun discussion, I can tell you.
Cool. All right. We still have a good time for Q&A. There are actually a lot of questions coming up, and that's great. And we also answered some of them, but some of them we would like to go to you guys, so you could answer that. And the first one would be, how do you tie monitoring maturity to organization maturity? So I think that would be interesting to hear from Ludovic first.
Yeah, sure. Well, what I've noticed in terms of maturity of an organization versus their observability maturity is that, especially when talking to higher ups and management of more established or more mature companies, they already have some ideas of what observability is about. And so I've been very often in the situation of explaining people, okay, here's our model, and then they grab on and hold on. They already have something similar, a similar journey already going on. And I've even been in situations, at least I don't think I can count it on two hands, how often I've been in the situation that companies tell me, yeah, we've built something like stack state internally because we felt it was really important to understand the dependencies between components and to be able to reason about causes and effects. So even though the market didn't really offer that to them, they started building it themselves. And then when we come in and we start talking about, okay, this is how we think the journey should proceed, then they're already making steps on that. So some really mature companies are already on level 3, are already on level 4, but those companies, yeah, they tend to also be have very strong technical leadership.
Cool. Yeah, and next question would be to Sander. To collect logs, metrics, and traces, did you use off-the-shelf software or did you develop your own solutions?
Back in the past, I think teams were still printing logs actually when I started. So that sounds really bad. The key for most of us, most applications is Splunk. Basically, it's set up as a centralized data lake. It's a strong position, so it's mostly an off-the-shelf solution. But it kind of depends on the DevOps team and where they are. Of course, we also use vendor software, so sometimes they have monitoring systems in place as well. Typically, we take a look at what's best for the situation, and we end up with something from the market. But in some cases, we made our own stuff. The availability numbers you saw, that was a custom-built tool because I didn't like what was on the market. We had something from the market actually in that place, and I thought it didn't work that well at the time. And yeah, let's build something else with a small team. And that's become company-wide adopted because it was better than anything on the market at the time. I think in the market nowadays, we have also the problem of engineers. Actually, it's very difficult to hire technically skilled engineers. So now we're kind of shifting back to doing more with the vendors, because you also have to maintain solutions you build yourself, and getting new engineers for custom built solutions is more difficult than something from a vendor. Yeah, so it's a mix in our case. It depends, but most of it is vendor stuff. Yeah.
Cool. The next question is, let's see who would be better to answer it, but it's that. Is there any time factor is involved in different levels of causes? Two parts for this. First, is it necessary to track how you stack changes over time in order to advance? And second, how long do teams typically stay on each level? Who would like to pick it up? Maybe Sander?
The second part I think I can answer. The
and
first part again?
The first part is it necessary to track how you stack changes over time in order to advance?
And then you mean to the maturity changes,
right.
or we don't actively do that currently, but it's not necessarily a bad idea. I mean, it's not that fine-grained. You can't really say they're at 1.1 now and at 1.2 next week and at 1.3, and I even think that's dangerous, because when I showed this model to my management with the levels, some managers thought, well, if two teams are at level 1, then together they're at level 2. Yeah, sorry, that's not how it really works. And some other managers said, yeah, well, we want to be at level 4 next week, so what do we need to do? But it's a long journey. So you could track the changes, but I would do it more like on the work to be done. And that's the level we're currently actually making more refined, that at this level, we expect you to have this in place. And within the company, you can use these tools, and you can basically do a self-assessment where you can say, I've done this, 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 and this. So now I know I'm at level 1. And then, okay, I want to move to the next step, so let's do that. And the centralized strategy is at least that everyone should be at 2. But yeah, we've also seen people self-report it that they were there, and then in practice they are not. So it's really when you want to make the step to level 3 that it becomes important that whoever is involved can do that. Yeah, how long does it typically take for a team to get there? It depends on the team itself.
Typically, yeah.
If your team is quite stable and the engineers do not change every few months, then you can make progression in the first 2 levels very quickly. I've seen some teams that with experienced engineers, give them tools like this, and within 2 months you get very far very quickly. But if it doesn't get the priority it needs, if the product owner doesn't find monitoring important, then it can take a year to get little bits of monitoring every here and there. So that's why the support from management is also critical. If they press on new features and not on operations, and you don't have someone that likes to do this, yeah, then it can take a long time.
Cool.
I'd like to add on to that last question as well. So do you need the change in order to advance? I mean, I'm absolutely on the same page with Sander there. Like, you know, it really doesn't matter so much on which level you are and when you get to advance and so on. It's not really that type of game, but it's more about the journey that you take. So, you know, the model has utility, and it's not about, you know, levels. But the answer to that would be, you know, not for the level, but like, is change important? And yes, it is getting more and more important. And it really depends also on the domain. So some domains are very quite static, and then, you know, just having a real-time topology, or even semi-real-time, or just, you know, once half an hour or so, as some systems do, can be enough and can give you quite a lot of value. And we've seen that also over the years. But in some other environments, it's completely off the table. So in Kubernetes, when a problem occurs,
Oops. Sander, can you hear Ludovic?
Ludovic, I think we lost your sound.
No audio.
Kubernetes will just kill the pod. And then when a problem occurs and there's cascade.
Sorry,
no,
the
there
mic,
goes the
no
internet.
audio. Sandra, probably
Yeah,
let's go with the next question with you. We still have just a bit of time. So, did you implement SRE thinking and roles to operations to assure proactiveness required for this to constantly improve?
the answer is currently no. It's a topic of discussion still if we need site reliability engineers. I think we do have created some positions for them, but there's no active site reliability engineers at the moment. It also comes back to the earlier question, the poll question you had, like, what's your current challenge? Our challenge was not that we need proactiveness and people constantly pushing it. People were probably aware of things. But it was really getting the mean time to repair to better. We're currently at the stage that we are looking at this though, because we see that if you want to do it over the chains, so you have the IT chain and you want to have monitoring anywhere, that's a role that's very important to have. So it's under investigation.
Yeah, cool. And another one, comment and question. Good stuff. Thanks for sharing. What kind of dividends have you gained from the observability implementation?
Yeah, better availability, that's the key thing, but also better awareness for teams and less finger pointing, that if I make it very short. Yeah, definitely the availability gains and also realizing what you don't yet have in place. And for me, it was also the realization you're basically never done. There's always something to continue monitoring. And the further you get along this journey, the more stuff you will find you didn't even realize. But every step along the way, our availability has become better. And I think one of our key focuses now is actually performance itself. It's nice if a system is up or down, but it has to be usable as well. And we realized that was still a weak point in our monitoring. We were doing a lot on up or down, but that's also usable for the customer, not so much yet.
Got it. Okay, we are almost out of time. By the way, can you see my screen now, like the presentation? Because I need to show it when the device dropped. Sandra, can you see it?
No, not yet. No.
Oh, okay. Let me check.
That's the power of the live demo. Something has to go wrong.
Right. And in this case, I need to enable my mic to allow GoToMeeting to see my screen. And it's actually asked to reopen. By the way, do you also have the slide? Maybe.
I might have a link I can share.
Okay. Anyway, let's see if we can do it. But we have some also nice stuff to you. In case we would not be able to show it now, we can send it over to the guys who attended and who registered for the session. It would be white paper about observability maturity model. And it would be observability maturity assessment tests you can use to basically get insights how your organization stacks on observability maturity level, and also the invitation to explore a stack state playground. Basically, you can try the product without any registration. So that would we would send with the materials via email. So could you, Sander?
I think I'm not allowed because I'm not presenter. I don't see the option to share.
Okay, just a second.
But again, I'm not really familiar with this tool just yet.
Yeah, so Dimitri, I'm trying to help
now
out
you are.
and show the screen for you guys.
Yeah, please show the last slide, would be super helpful.
Hold on. Just trying to bring it up.
Yeah, you would save the show.
All right, here you go. So those are the call to actions that Dimitri was sharing out. And of course, in the follow-up email, we'll also include links to those as well. Back to you, Dimitri.
Yeah, so thanks for everyone for attending. Great stories, Sander, Ludovic. Yeah, really interesting stuff to share. Yeah, glad that it was so many questions. So people are really engaged and interested in how to level up their maturity level with their companies. So thanks. Have a great rest of the day, and it was great to talk and to engage with the so many people who are really interested in that. So now we closing the session.